The Power of Learning as a Learned Behavior, a Practical Guide for Continuous Improvement in Organizations abstract. This paper explores how the ability to continuously learn and improve is a critical yet underutilized skill in both personal and professional contexts. It argues that learning is not an innate capability, but rather a learned behavior that must be intentionally developed through conscious effort and practice. The paper first defines organizational learning as the continual and collaborative process of using data and experience to enhance performance. It then examines the science of habit formation, showing how learning requires repetitive practice to become an automatic response. The paper outlines strategies for leaders to shape a learning-oriented organizational culture, such as aligning learning goals with key metrics, emphasizing hands-on practice and feedback, and modeling a growth mindset. Finally, it showcases Netflix as a case study in embedding learning at the core of an innovative, adaptive business. The paper concludes that in today's volatile environment, the only sustainable advantage is the ability to learn faster than competitors and continuously reinvent oneself, which requires deliberately cultivating learning as an organizational competency. One of the most impactful yet underutilized skills in both our personal and professional lives is the ability to continuously learn and improve. While it may seem obvious that learning is important for individual and organizational success, the reality is that habits of perpetual learning are not innate. They must be intentionally developed and reinforced over time through conscious effort and practice. Today, we will explore how learning itself can be framed as a learned behavior and propose concrete steps that organizational leaders can take to foster a culture where learning is valued, prioritized, and ingrained at both the individual and systemic levels. By understanding learning as a practice that requires cultivation, leaders are better positioned to equip their people and shape their environments in a way that drives ongoing progress. Defining organizational learning and its importance. Before diving into the how of learning as a learned behavior, it is first important to properly frame the what and why. For the purpose of this discussion, organizational learning will be defined as the continual and collaborative process by which an organization uses data and experience to enhance performance and outcomes. This definition underscores two key aspects of learning: that it is ongoing rather than episodic, and that it involves the sharing of knowledge across individuals, teams, and departments. With this understanding, the significance of organizational learning becomes clear. In today's rapidly changing world, the ability to learn from both successes and failures is critical for businesses hoping to adapt, innovate, and stay ahead of the competition. Organizational learning also has wide-reaching positive impacts on employee engagement, operational efficiency, customer satisfaction, problem-solving abilities, and more. For leaders looking to future-proof their organizations, fostering a culture of learning should be a top strategic priority. Learning as a learned behavior, the science behind habit formation. If learning is to be cultivated as an organizational core competency, leaders must first comprehend learning at the individual level as a skill that requires focused development over time. Decades of brain research have revealed that learning is not an innate human capability, but rather a learned behavior shaped by experience and repetition. Dewage, 2007. New behaviors and cognitions are encoded into our neural pathways through a biologically driven process of habit formation, whereby each iteration of a desired behavior strengthens the associated neural circuitry, making subsequent performances of that behavior faster and more automatic. Dewig, 2012. Applying this science of habit to learning, it becomes clear that just as it takes deliberate practice to master a musical instrument or sport, it similarly takes intentional and repeated practice to master the skill of learning itself. Individuals must be supported in consciously breaking down learning into discrete steps, from information intake to comprehension to application, and then repetitively engaging in feedback-based practice of these learned behaviors until they become habitual responses to any learning opportunity. Shaping an organizational learning culture, strategies and practices with the understanding that learning requires habit formation at the individual level. Leaders can then design organizational strategies, systems and structures aimed at reinforcing learning as the dominant and self-sustaining culture. One successful approach is to establish clear learning objectives that are directly connected to both individual and team key performance metrics. Edmondson, 2011. This demonstrates that learning is a business priority equally as important as traditional measures of output or sales. Formal learning and development programs should focus not just on content delivery but emphasize hands-on practice, reflection, feedback loops and collaboration. Deru et al. 2012. Opportunities for informal learning, such as internal communities of practice, peer coaching networks and stretch assignment rotations, can also reinforce learning-oriented behaviors outside of traditional training settings. Wenger, 2000. Collecting and sharing lessons learned from both successes and failures, whether through case studies, after-action reviews, or lightweight metrics platforms, makes the value of learning visible while continuously building organizational knowledge. Harvey et al. 2020. Leaders modeling curiosity, questioning assumptions, and openly acknowledging what they have learned sends a strong cultural signal that lifelong learning is valued at all levels. Fostering a growth mindset, the crucial role of feedback while strategies and programs are important for shaping a learning culture. The most impactful factor may be how an organization views and discusses the concept of ability itself. A fixed mindset, which views skills and intelligence as innate talents, undermines learning by discouraging risk-taking and experimentation for fear of exposing deficiencies. Dweck, 2006. In contrast, fostering a growth mindset, the belief that abilities can be developed through effort, strategy and instruction, allows people to feel empowered over their capacity to learn and improve. Leaders play a key role by how they frame discussions of performance, successes and failures. Heslin et al. 2005. Focusing feedback on effort, strategies, and progress toward mastery rather than absolute outcomes promotes risk-taking, perseverance and intrinsic motivation to learn from both achievements and setbacks. Cummins and Dweck, 1999. Establishing psychological safety so people feel comfortable admitting gaps and asking for help also reinforces that learning through mistakes and questions is valued, not stigmatized. Edmondson, 2019. With the right growth mindset, feedback becomes the fuel individuals need to continuously stretch their abilities and maximize their potential. A case study in organizational learning, Netflix as a compelling real-world example. The media streaming giant Netflix has embedded learning into the very foundation of its innovative culture. From its inception, Netflix recognized that to disrupt entrenched incumbents in the video rental industry would require an ability to learn and adapt at unprecedented speed. Reed, 2014. The company instituted lightweight metrics and experimentation platforms to continuously test new content, product features, pricing and more, ensuring learnings from both triumphs and stumbles were captured, analyzed and quickly incorporated into the next iterations. Netflix also focused heavily on psychological safety and empowering employees at all levels to propose creative ideas and learn through failures without reprisal, fostering a true culture of risk-taking and growth. Schmidt and Rosenberg, 2014. This learning-oriented approach allowed Netflix to rapidly iterate its way to industry leadership and helped insulate it from competitors clinging to outdated assumptions. Netflix's story demonstrates organizational learning in action on a massive scale, having transformed an entire sector through continuous, data-driven improvement. Conclusion: in today's VUCA world defined by volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, the only sustainable advantage is the ability to learn faster than competitors and continuously reinvent oneself based on feedback. This paper has aimed to reframe organizational learning as an actively cultivated competency, outlining how learning itself can be understood as a learned behavior at the individual level, and proposing systemic strategies that support learning as an ingrained part of organizational culture. By focusing on fostering growth mindsets, collecting lessons through various formal and informal feedback loops, and modeling curiosity and risk-taking from the top down, leaders have the power to shape high-performance, adaptive learning organizations. With intentional nurturing over time, learning truly can become second nature for individuals, teams and entire enterprises seeking to thrive amid constant change. The rewards of perpetual progress far outweigh the risks of maintaining obsolete assumptions or going it alone.